Hello, hello, hello. I'm Melanie Little, and welcome to my channel. If you are coming back, thank you so much for your support. This is my second video. The first video that I did on my own channel was regarding the Kevin Costner divorce, which is something that I am fascinated by. And I had 27 subscribers when I started that channel. 5 of them were my kids. And now, a week later, I have over 800 subscribers. So thank you so much for the love. Feel free to share the video with your friends or family or anyone who you think might be interested in this subject. And please hit the like and subscribe button below because it helps the algorithm and it helps YouTube push the video out. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be great. Prior to starting my own channel, I was a frequent guest and co-host on 2 YouTube podcasts. One is Police Off the Cuff. The other is Crime Time with Duty Ron. And those are true crime podcasts, which cover cases that are in the news regarding Koberger, Harmony Montgomery, the West case. We cover things current, things past, things that have not come up for trial yet, and I do the legal analysis and commentating for both of those podcasts. If you'd like to check those out, go to my playlists on my channel, and I have a list of all of the episodes that I've done for both of those channels if you're interested in that kind of stuff. If you're new here, thank you so much for coming. You might want to watch the first Kevin Costner divorce video that I did just to get yourself up to speed, but I'm going to do a little recap for you anyway. Also, thank you so much for your comments. I really love reading your comments, and I love engaging people in friendly debate and dialogue. But please be respectful in your comments. Please, no personal attacks against me or each other. Please, no cursey words. I know there are channels out there that are big fans of cursey words. I am not one of them. So if you curse or say foul things in your comments, they will be deleted. You have been warned. Some people, not a lot of people, but a couple of viewers commented that they thought it was pretty obvious that I don't like Christine, that I was being very harsh, that she deserves every penny, that it is very expensive to live where they live in Carpinteria, California, which is in Santa Barbara County near Montecito, and that the $248,000 a month that she is demanding in child support is completely reasonable, and that there are plenty of people out there who receive that kind of money in child support from a spouse. And who do I think I am as a woman, especially not being on her side? And basically, how dare I? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from and who I am. And if you'd like to watch videos with no opinions, you are free to go watch a slideshow of photos narrated by an AI voice, which is very robotic, and I don't really understand it, and I don't see how anybody could be engaged by that kind of content. But if that's the kind of content you want, then you're free to go look for that. That's not what you're going to get from me. I am a recovering attorney, I like to say. I've been a practicing New York State attorney for over 30 years, and I am now a legal commentator and legal analyst, and I'm not taking on any more clients personally, but I know a lot about the law. I've practiced law for a very long time. I'm a litigator. I'm a trial lawyer, and I tell it like it is. I'm also a mother of 5, so I have that vantage point as well. And I'm also somebody who's worked or had a job since I was probably 13 years old. I delivered penny savers with my sister. If anybody knows what penny savers are, they were those little newspaper things with ads in them that we would throw in people's driveway. I've been a waitress. I've had just about every job that you can imagine, and I've always supported myself. And I teach my kids that they should support themselves too. They should never rely on anybody else for money, and that it is very important to make your own way. So when I see something like this, where there's a 48, 49-year-old woman coming into court and trying to convince a judge who probably makes maybe $200,000 a year that she should get $250,000 a month in child support tax-free, because child support is not taxable, which means that she would have to make $500,000 a month if she had a job in order to net $250,000 a month, because that's the tax bracket that they're in. It just seems to me to be a little bit tone deaf. The optics are bad, especially when so many people are struggling after COVID. And now in Hollywood, there's a writer's strike, so all the productions have been shut down. Nobody's working. Nobody's been working pretty much in Hollywood for the past 2 months. It just seems a bit entitled to me. So that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. You don't have to agree with it. But I say, and one of the women who commented on my video said that she lives near there. She knows a lot of people who live near there. This is just how much it costs. I mean, I guess it's a good gig if you can get it. If I had somebody who would give me that kind of money tax-free every month, I mean, I don't know. When I went to college, there were a lot of women in college with me who were out there looking for the MRS degree because they didn't want to work and they just wanted somebody to support them. But here's what happens. Here's what happens. So, since I've been accused of being too favorable to Kevin in this matter, I thought I would show you a little video of something that I dug up because I remember when this happened. It was 2004, Golden Globes, Joan Rivers on the carpet, stops to talk to Kevin and Christine, who were just engaged at this time. He gets a little bit of a public shaming from Joan Rivers. So let's take a look.
You see the ring? Sure. Oh, you are a fool. It should be 4 times this size. You should be ashamed of yourself. I know.
You know, I really miss Joan Rivers on the red carpet. She was the best. Well, it should be noted that after this public shaming, notice how she says you should be ashamed of yourself, and he says, I know. After this incident on the red carpet in early 2004, Kevin upgraded Christine's ring to a 5-carat square diamond with, I think, 3 carats of other diamonds surrounding it for their wedding that took place later that year. Which begs a question, ladies. Any of you that have been divorced, what did you do with your wedding rings when you got divorced? Did you keep them? Or are you going to give them to your kids? Or is that bad juju? Did you sell them? Because while Christine says she has no assets in her court papers, it seems to me that that ring might be worth a lot of money. I don't know. She could auction it off? Sotheby's? Christie's? I don't know. Just a thought. Okay, so moving on. Tomorrow, July 5th, 2023, there is going to be a hearing. And it is a hearing for its respondent, Kevin Costner's request for order, which they also call an RFO, request for order, regarding 1, the injunction prohibiting petitioner from occupancy, meaning whether or not Christine has to leave the property. Number 2, an order sealing the PMA, or premarital agreement. And number 3, bifurcation of the issue of validity and enforceability of the PMA. So basically what that means is whether Christine will have to leave the marital house now or at the end of August, which is what she is proposing. Just to rewind a little bit. When Christine filed for divorce on May 1st, let's just go back to the timeline a little bit here. I remember in my first video, we were trying to figure out what the significance of the April 11th date was, because in Christine's original declaration supporting this divorce, she said that they've been separated since April 11th. We have since come to learn that April 11th was the day that she told Kevin that she wanted a divorce. So that's the significance of that date. May 1st, Christine files for divorce. May 3rd, Kevin announced that he's leaving Yellowstone, which is the bulk of his income. Yellowstone is on season 5. At the beginning of the series, he was making about $500,000 an episode. I think by season 5, he was making $1.3 million per episode. I try and report on only what I can verify in court documents, so I don't like to talk about rumor, conjecture, speculation, why he left the show, except that in Christine's declaration, she says, I did not ask him to leave Yellowstone. So he may have announced that he was leaving Yellowstone prior to even being served with the divorce papers, because we think he was served on May 5th or 6th, which is when he was coming back from Utah, where he was filming his own movie, Horizon, which is going to be a 4-part Civil War era saga, to California. So my speculation was that she filed the divorce May 1st. Her son's birthday was May 6th. She knew Kevin would be back in California for the birthday, so she could have him served with the papers. That's the timeline that we know about so far. Now, when Christine filed for divorce on May 1st, that triggered a clause in the premarital agreement. I have not been able to get a copy of the premarital agreement because it is under seal with the court right now. The hearing tomorrow is going to determine whether or not it is going to be permanently sealed, which I believe it should be. But there is a clause in the premarital agreement that says, upon filing for divorce, Christine must leave any separate property residence owned by Kevin prior to the marriage within 30 days of filing for divorce. This beach compound that they live in Carpinteria, California, is noted in the premarital agreement as his separate property. He owned it before the marriage. He owned that property, another massive property in Aspen, and there's a third property down the beach in Carpinteria from this one that they were going to sell, but he still owns it. These were his separate homes before the marriage. He contemplated them in the premarital agreement, and those are the terms of the agreement. So the hearing tomorrow is going to be to ask the court to tell her she has to vacate the property. It's really important to note that he is not kicking his children out of the property. She has spun it a different way, like I said in my first video, and he did address that in his declaration that he just filed on June 30th, which we are going to read. Okay. So before we do that, I just wanted to show a little video of happier times. This was a video that Kevin posted on February 14th of 2023. And it is when he received his Golden Globe in the mail. He talks about what happened when the Golden Globes were aired and why he couldn't be there and what his wife did for him to celebrate and how the whole family watched it together. And it seems really genuine and really like they were really in love. So let's take a look.
You know, Chris and I, we weren't able to make it to the Golden Globes, and because of the flooding, we got cut off in Ventura and up here in Montecito, and we felt so horrible about that, and there was just nothing we could do. And we watched the time like a sand in a bottle go out as our chances dimmed of getting there, and so we watched from home, and it wasn't the same. Chris had a dress, I had a tuxedo. It was in another hotel down in LA, and you know, I never liked to be too cool for school. I wanted to be there, and Chris realized that my heart was a little bit low, and my wife, with $30, went down to the store. I'll never forget this. And she bought about 30 balloons because it was just going to be us and our family in the den watching watching the Golden Globes, something that we imagined ourselves being there, something I dreamed about. To be nominated as an actor was really important to me. And we couldn't be there, but my wife found a way to take something really simple, and my children and I sat on the couch and we watched the whole doggone thing. And my kids heard our name be called. And we weren't at one of the greatest parties in the world. We wanted to be, but we found ourselves together as a family, and my children heard my name called, and they stood up and they cheered, and the award just came here. And I thought for all the people that have supported me for the Golden Globes, which I was so happy. I'd known them a long time, that international community, and they've always been very kind to me, and I couldn't be there, but this is the award. So I'm gonna just open it in front of all my friends out there. And
okay, so that video was posted on Valentine's Day, February 14th of 2023. And by April 11th, Christine told Kevin she wanted a divorce. I don't know what happened in less than 2 months, but sad. It's always sad when something ends. It's always sad when a marriage breaks up. Okay, so Christine filed a declaration on June 28th with the court, 7 pages long. I could not obtain a copy of the entire declaration, but I'm going to quote from it certain things that I found from reliable sources that I can rely on, that this is what was actually filed. Okay, so basically Christine says that she will move out of the home on August 31st, 2023, so long as Kevin complies with her demands for child support, or so long as Kevin complies with whatever support and fee orders that the court makes on July 12th. She says that this will give her 50 days to obtain a new residence. She says, Kevin wants me to rent a place without a financial plan in place. However, I have our 3 children to think about. It's contrary to their best interest to commit to a rental that I may not be able to afford, particularly as that would ultimately lead to multiple relocations. My goal has been and continues to be maintaining as much stability for our children as possible, which includes having the proper resources and plan in place so that I can establish a stable home for them rather than making temporary and inconsistent housing arrangements. She, again, points out she has 0 income. I have no ability to procure a lease or pay rent. I cannot provide proof of personal income or personal assets. No landlord will rent to me without these things. Okay, from what I understand, Carpinteria is a very small community. People know that she's Kevin Costner's wife. I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that nobody's going to rent to her. She then accuses Kevin of lying in his prior declaration, where he said that he promised to maintain the financial status quo during the pendency of the action. And I pointed to this out in the last video. I said she sounds like he cut off her credit card. He did cut off her credit card. So he shut down one of her credit cards, and he put a much lower limit on one of her other credit cards to curb her spending. And that was after, you may recall, she spent $95,000 on his credit cards to pay her attorneys and her forensic accountant prior to filing for divorce on May 1st. So she siphoned $95,000 in April. I would cancel her credit card too. Would you? Okay, then she goes on to say that she shouldn't have to leave until the end of August, because on the nights that Kevin has stayed in the house when she was there, there have been no issues. She said she, quote, acquiesced to Kevin's demand to use the primary bedroom and slept elsewhere in the house. During the time that Kevin was in the home, there was no physical or emotional harm perpetrated by either party or threatened by either party. which was kind of an odd thing to say in a declaration, because this is the first that we're hearing about even any possibility of abuse or physical or emotional harm. It just is an odd thing to put in there, something else that the media might sink their teeth into and latch onto, that because they've been able to stay there together without anybody hurting each other, it should continue. Nice of her to give him his bedroom. All right, it was their marital bedroom, but still, this was his house before they got married, okay? I'm just saying. Christine also says that the estate has 3 separate and fully equipped residences and has ample room for both parties to reside with the children through the end of August. Yeah, or it could become the War of Roses. There are a lot of people who stay together in the same house before they get divorced, right? Because they just can't afford to split up the assets, and they can't afford for somebody to move out, pay rent somewhere else, and it's just not, the pie isn't big enough to be able to split it up and support 2 separate households. Here, he's already agreed to give her a certain amount of money. He put $1 million in her account within 9 days of her filing for divorce. And then, then I was having some people comment to me that, $1.4 million, she can't even buy a 2-bedroom condo in Torrance, or there's nothing. She doesn't have to use that to buy a house. It would make a nice down payment on a house, wouldn't it? Could you agree with me that $1.45 million would make a nice down payment on a house? Sounds like it. Christine's motion added, quote, as Kevin acknowledges in his declaration of June 14th, 2023, he and his editing team will be spending time in one of the secondary residences where his office is located doing editing work. Due to the large size of the beach club compound, it is quite possible for the parties to both reside on the property temporarily until August while having very little contact with each other. Okay, just because it's possible does not make it necessary. It just doesn't. Anybody who's ever been in that situation where you're both living in the same house for the sake of the kids are smart. They can pick up on tension and undercurrents of behavior towards each other. It's not a situation that is healthy for any kids or anybody's kids. And it just, look, her attorneys told her not to leave the house because that's what attorneys do. But I don't know. It's just kind of ringing a little bit hollow with me. Okay, so again, Kevin responded to her declaration by filing his own declaration on June 30th, which is the last filing that we have access to before the court hearing tomorrow, July 5th. And I have access to the first 2 pages of the declaration, but the rest of it I have quotes from, so we'll summarize the rest. I, Kevin Costner, hereby declare as follows. I am the respondent in this action. I have personal knowledge of the following facts, and if called as a witness, I could and would competently testify thereto. This declaration is submitted in opposition to petitioner Christine Costner's request for order for child support and a further contribution from me to her professional's fees. So remember, she asked for $350,000 for her attorney's fees and another $150,000 for her forensic accountant fees that she wants Kevin to pay. And that's part of the hearing that is going to happen on July 12th. Number 2 addresses his availability. It says, my availability. Christine and her lawyers set her support RFO for hearing on July 12th, a date they knew I would be in British Columbia with our boys on a trip planned before Christine told me she wanted a divorce. In my June 14 declaration submitted in opposition to Christine's ex parte request, ex parte means without him being involved. So they made a request ex parte to continue or adjourn the hearing On my pending RFO from July 5th to July 12th, I informed the court I would be out of the country July 9th through 13th. The very next day, Christine filed her support RFO, setting it for hearing on July 12th. I do not know if I will have remote access on July 12th. So he files a motion to ask the court to tell her to vacate the house pursuant to the PMA. That hearing is July 5th, which is tomorrow. She files a motion saying, I want the court to order interim pendente lite child support during the pendency of this litigation so that I can live. But she doesn't want to have that heard on July 5th. She asked that both these motions could be adjourned to July 12th. He told the court, and his attorney told the court, and she knew that he was going to be in British Columbia with the children, or two of the children, the boys, on July 12th. And yet they still set the hearing for July 12th. He doesn't even know if he's going to have access to Zoom. So should he cancel his vacation with his two boys and disappoint them to show up in court so he can argue the motion on why she shouldn't receive $248,000 a month in child support? I don't know what the court's going to do about that. But I just think that that's kind of gross too. Number 3, this is addressing Christine's continuing refusal to move out of my separate property home. As of this date, Christine still has not moved out of my home, as she agreed to do by June 2nd in our premarital agreement. She states in her declaration that she is, quote, willing to move out, but cannot do so without support from me. I have fully supported her, even though our PMA does not condition her moving out on support from me. My actions show this. Immediately upon her filing for divorce, I paid her $1 million due under the PMA, even though that payment was not required to be made for 6 months. So he paid her that $1 million within 9 days to facilitate her ability to move, and she still didn't move. And he wasn't even required to pay that under the agreement until 6 months. It sounds like he's trying to be a nice guy. I don't know. If you don't agree with me, please, I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments. Okay. Then he says, when I was informed in May she had located a rental to move into, a rental home to move into, I offered to contribute $30,000 a month as part of my child support obligation. I offered to advance $10,000 in moving costs. I offered her the full use of household staff to assist in making the move, and I offered to pay her the now additional $200,000 I owe her under the PMA in cash rather than as a down payment toward her purchase of a home. So he's really trying here. He's really trying. I have also offered as child support to inter alia, which is Latin for among other things, pay directly 100% of the tuition, school trips, sports, and camp, agreed upon extracurricular activities, and unreimbursed medical and therapy expenses of our children. I also told her that I would continue to pay 100% of the children's expenses since she filed for divorce, and I have done so. So he's paying 100% of the children's expenses since she filed. He just cut off her credit card. So she's trying to tell the court that, no, he's not maintaining the status quo for me. She's trying to make the court think it's for the children. That's not true. It's for her. I am doing the most I can reasonably do to make a divorce that she wanted as seamless as possible for our children. Next paragraph. I had planned to return to California from filming in Utah over this past weekend, June 24 and 25. My lawyer therefore asked that if Christine would not move out by then, that she would at least relocate from the primary bedroom before my return. Christine is planning to leave for a trip to Florida on June 29, and thus I thought that this would not be a big imposition. I have been filming in Utah for quite a while, and I expected to return to my home that Christine was supposed to have vacated by then to see my children and begin post-production work on Horizon. I need to be home to oversee the post-production work on my Horizon film project, which started on the Horizon 2 film June 26th. Horizon is the 4-part film saga that he has been working on since leaving Yellowstone. That is his passion project. C. Christine did not respond by June 23rd to my request that she at least move out of the primary bedroom. Because I am not now comfortable sharing a residence with Christine, I very reluctantly changed my travel plans and delayed returning home. Instead, I drove to my ranch in Aspen to stay through the July 4th holiday weekend. Christine's lawyers were so informed on June 23rd. A true copy of my lawyer's letter is attached as Exhibit 1. So he asked, they didn't respond, so he basically had no choice but to not go home, because that's how uncomfortable he says it is. D. This forced change in my plans is materially interfering with my work commitments. My home is also my office. I am producing and starring in what I hope will be a 4-movie project, Horizon. Filming on Horizon 1 is done, and filming of Horizon 2 was just completed this month. The post-production editing process for Horizon 2 started on June 26, when I had planned to be home. Editors and other employees will be working out of, and on occasions staying overnight in, one of the 2 smaller homes located adjacent to my primary residence in Carpinteria, where I will have my office. There are timelines that I need to adhere to. The director's first cut is typically required within 10 to 12 weeks from completion of photography. I am hoping to have Horizon 1 also in post-production, ready to show at film festivals later this year, with a theatrical release by year end. I need to be present for this post-production work. So I think that he has shown the court a compelling reason why she needs to vacate the house tout de suite or immediately, because he needs to work. And if she wants him to make the kind of money that he's going to need to make to pay her the exorbitant amount of child support that she's requesting, then she needs to move out, because he needs to use his editing suite. They can't live in separate homes on the property, because one of them is his office and his studio, and he needs to house some of his team to work there to edit this movie so that it can be done for the Venice Film Festival in August, so that he can hopefully recoup some of the $20 million that he put into it, which we will get into as we move a little bit further into this declaration. Kevin then goes on to respond to and rebut Christine's assumptions that she makes in her request for child support. And this is called Child Support Request. Christine's assertion that our 3 teenage children, quote, need, end quote, $248,000 a month to live is astonishing to me. And as I discussed below, not accurate. Nor can I afford to pay those amounts and pay my living and business expenses without liquidating assets. While I have assets in my personal bank and brokerage accounts in excess of $4 million, of those accounts are earmarked for payment of income taxes payable in 2022. The rest is blocked off on that page. But he does go on to say that in Christine's declaration, she indicated that there were $188,000 in medical expenses. He says that's inaccurate. Those were her cosmetic surgery expenses. He also says, I'm also financing with others the Horizon multi-film project pursuant to a contractual commitments I have with the other third-party investors that I entered into long before Christine filed for divorce. In 2022, I contributed $20 million to the production company as my share of those commitments. The position I find myself in now, with Christine refusing to leave my residence, is exactly what I told her before we married that I wanted to avoid. That is why, in our premarital agreement, Christine expressly agreed to move out of my home upon the filing of a divorce petition. A lot of these documents that we read during the last video and today seem repetitive. I think he's really just trying to hammer home those points because they are important. There is a contract. What is contained within the 4 corners of the contract is what should govern here. It appears to me from Christine's declaration that in the guise of asking for child support, she is really looking to replicate her own lifestyle. The court documents go on to say that Christine's list of expenses have no basis in reality and are quite misleading because they list her private trainer and her plastic surgery under expenses for the children. He says the children do not use the services of private trainers. Only Christine does. The plastic surgery expense of $188,500 belongs to Christine, not the children. And then he says this: things between us have unfortunately deteriorated since early May, which was right after she filed for divorce. I am also concerned about what allegations she may make if we are living under the same roof for months. I am not at all comfortable sharing my home with Christine or with her being on my property going forward. My property is both my home and where I work, nor do I believe it's in our children's best interests for me and Christine to occupy the same house or property, given the allegations she has made and positions she has taken and the unfortunate tension this has caused. I find it very offensive, her attorney's false, oft-repeated, and deliberately inflammatory claims that I am seeking to, quote, kick my children, end quote, out of their home. This is Christine pandering to the press, he says. This was the soundbite from her prior papers filed with the court that all of the media outlets and social media platforms picked up and ran with in many published articles. Our children are teenagers and they see the reports in the media. I have never, ever said our children have to move out of their home, and they do not. They will be living with both of us, moving between our respective residences. So there you have it. In addition, his attorneys filed some briefs and other things with sources for the court to consider when the judge makes his ruling. And in one of the attorney's affidavits, his attorney goes on to say, Christine wanted this divorce. She knew about the provision in the PMA requiring her to vacate. She just chose to ignore it. She can and should honor the agreement she made as a condition of marrying Kevin and leave his residence. She can and should have done so by now. Christine says she'll move out in August. If so, there's nothing stopping her from moving out by July 13th. That is what his attorneys say. Now, with regard to the legal fees that he's requesting, which is $350,000 plus $150,000 for the forensic accountant for now, not including trial expenses if this case goes to trial. There is a provision in the PMA that they quote in their brief, and it says, quote, should any party contest the validity of this agreement or claim it is invalid in whole or in part, that party shall be liable to the other party for all witness, attorney, accounting, and appraisal fees and costs incurred by the party defending the validity of this agreement in the event this agreement or any contested portion of it is adjudicated to be valid and binding. So if he wins this contesting of the PMA, she needs to pay his attorney's fees. The attorney states then, Christine refuses to resolve issues. She engages in gamesmanship and refuses to abide by the PMA while providing no evidence in support of her challenge to the PMA. In fact, per the PMA, it is Christine who should be paying Kevin's attorney's fees because she is challenging the PMA. They've got a good point there. One of his other attorneys points out that in a request for admission, Christine admitted under oath that she was of sound mind, not under duress, and represented by counsel when she signed the PMA. And the attorney says, accordingly, under the current state of the evidence, the court cannot award Christine fees and costs with which to challenge the PMA because the court must assume that it is valid. Not only would such an award be contrary to the terms of the PMA as a practical matter, in light of the presumption and absent any facts presented to overcome it, the court must assume that Christine will be stripped of any funds with which to reimburse Kevin for fees he expends in defense of her challenge. So that's a very good point. It's also important to note that there is a difference between unemployed and unemployable. Christine may be unemployed right now, but she's a 49-year-old woman. That doesn't make her unemployable. The court needs to impute some sort of income to her. Just because she has not worked in however many years since the children were born does not mean she does not have the ability to do so. She has a college degree. She's a handbag designer. She was a model. She certainly has the ability to go out and earn a living. And that's a very important point that should be made here. So tomorrow, July 5th, 2023, there will be a hearing, and hopefully the court will address the issue of whether or not Christine needs to move out of the house either by July 12th or, as she is asking, the end of August. My position is, if the prenup isn't going to hold up, what's the point of even having one? Let me know your comments below, and I would love to respond to them and answer them. Just remember to be respectful. And I will see you soon. Have a great night.